Russell, you joining us live. I mean, what do you think of the Scottish legislation that has been passed?
I think it's opportunistic and populist, frankly. I think it's more political than anything else. The problem with such a kind of knee-jerk reaction, whereby it kind of plays well to the audience of tenants, particularly from a left-leaning government, which obviously Nicola Sturgeon's is, the problem is the unintended consequences. You know, saying to a landlord, you know, who may well just have one or two properties, who may well have a mortgage, may well be on a variable rate, whereby obviously that landlord therefore is now paying more money to service that mortgage. And also, of course, landlords are subject to the same cost of living crisis as we are. You know, there's a perception, Anna, that the landlord, the typical landlord, is some big faceless kind of institution that has hundreds and thousands of properties and kind of is a bit computer says no. Nothing could be further from the truth. And whether it's Scotland or the rest of Britain, most landlords, as Richard actually will attest to, have 3 properties or less and are, quite frankly, ordinary human beings like us that are subject to the same inflationary pressures. What happens if successive governments, not just the Scottish government, but certainly the English government, if they consistently bash landlords by taking away benefits, by taking away their ability, for instance, to obtain tax relief, by ensuring that the balance of power, if you like, is weighted significantly in favour of the tenant, particularly with crazy initiatives like this, which basically says if you're a tenant and you decide not to now pay your rent, the landlord cannot evict you. So it's kind of back to where we were with those emergency measures from the pandemic. So that's part of this bill. But for a landlord not to be able to increase rent by basically any amount, really, even though they themselves are under pressure, all it does is to deter those landlords from being involved in the property asset class. They'll just go and invest in other things. What that then leads to is a significant shortage of properties, not then backed up by governments being able to actually replace those properties themselves, because governments, we know, are terrible at building council houses. They just don't do that anymore. So this is a terrible, ill-thought scheme with awful unintended consequences.